Welcome to Chapter 6 of your 2024 journey. My name's Michelle, founder and owner of Movara Fitness Resort, and we are so excited to be able to help give you the tools to help you write the story that you want to be living. So in this week's chapter, we are talking all about self-care. Last week, we talked about self-love, and part of self-love is having self-care. And in this week's email, we mentioned that self-care is crucial yet undervalued aspect of personal growth and well-being. I want to talk about the importance of self-care and understand that self-care is not really a luxury. A lot of us think of self-care as like, oh, I'm going to go to the spa or I'm going to, get a massage. Although those are great for self-care, it's not just about the indulgence or relaxation. Again, although relaxation is a huge part to self-care, it's about intentionally taking time to care for your physical, mental, and emotional health. So in this week's chapter, we're going to talk about and explore how self-care practices can help you recharge, find balance, and enhance your resilience against life's challenges. Ultimately, also be the foundation of our success. When we are taking care of ourselves, we will see success. So you can see that self-love, self-care is foundational in our results and in our success. So again, this week, I want to talk about our physical self-care, our mental self-care, it's a thing, and also our emotional self-care. Again, oftentimes we think of self-care and we think about the physical things. So in this week's workbook, we're going to talk about 6 phases or 6 steps to the concept of self-care. And just like when we talked about last week, how self-love is an action. It's not just something that we have, it's something that we do. And again, self-care is the same. It's something that we actively engage in activities that promote health, well-being. They're nurturing not just the body, but the mind and the spirit. It's about listening to our needs, responding in a nurturing way. Self-care is as essential as breathing, which is interesting to think about because we all know how important and essential breathing is. It's vital for maintaining balance, reducing stress, and enhancing our ability to live fully. So if we aren't practicing self-care, we're really not living fully. Practicing self-care, again, is not a luxury. It's a critical part of your well-being. It increases your resilience, allows you to recharge, and again, helps you manage life's challenges. By caring for yourself, you're building a foundation for a stronger and more fulfilled life. So part 1 is really understanding what self-care is. And I think it's an important, each week, we'll define these things. So what is it to you? I want you to write your definition of what self-care is. For example, self-care means taking time each evening to unwind with a book. That might be something that is self-care for you. It might mean each evening you unwind with, whatever practice, with a walk, taking your dog on a walk or spending time with loved ones. It may mean ensuring that you get enough sleep. I think for most of us, that's really, really important. I don't know for who that isn't important for, but it may be for you, your definition might include choosing foods that nourish your body. For me, it's taking time to move, nourish my body and my mind, and trusting God's timing. So it's important for you to define what that is for you personally, not what someone else's definition of self-care is. So the pillars of self-care, I mentioned we're going to talk about physical self-care, like regular exercise, adequate sleep, nutritious eating, and this is one that I ignore too often, which when I was reviewing this and thinking about what self-care is, regular healthcare appointments. When my kids were little, I would visit the doctor more regularly. Now that they're not, it's one thing that I forget about. So that's a very, very important aspect to self-care that has been one of the commitments in this week's chapter that I've made, is to be better at our regular healthcare appointments. Emotional self-care. So emotional self-care involves practices like stress management. And for everybody, that stress management can be different. emotional literacy, and then fostering positive relationships. Mental self-care encompasses activities such as engaging in stimulating mental activities. When we were younger and in school, that was easier because we were constantly strengthening our mind. And as I know for me, learning a lot of technology or learning new programs and new systems. And one thing that I have loved every week is the mental challenge of learning guest names. I always, every week, I think like this is just going to help my memory and my brain stimulation. So practicing mindfulness. And then I think this is an important one, seeking therapy or counseling when needed. That can be mental self-care. So each week we also do an assessment. So I want you to think on a scale from 1 to 10. Last week we talked about where we were on a scale from 1 to 10 on self-love. I want you to think about where you are on a scale from 1 to 10 on self-care. And think about every aspect. So for me, my self-care, I regularly get physical activity, but am I regularly taking care of my mental and emotional self-care? How often, or how would you rate your nutrition habits? How would you rate your stress relief activities? So not just the physical self-care. All right, part 3 is developing a self-care plan, which we've talked about in previous episodes of the importance of a plan, because if there's not a plan, it just doesn't happen. So allocating time for that 30-minute walk, or setting aside time to connect with your friends, a dedicated Sunday afternoon to a hobby, or attending a religious activity that brings you joy and happiness. That again is self-care for you. So really planning it into your schedule. Okay, well, and before we move to part 2, also think of a mixed variation types of self-activities throughout the week. So balance really is key. So when we talk about the 3 different pillars of physical, mental, and emotional self-care, creating balance in those. So not just, again, I know sometimes we focus on just the physical self-care, but trying to create balance in all 3 of those pillars. Okay, so part 4, practical self-care strategies. So I'm a big fan of keeping it simple. When we think about all of these things we want to incorporate and do, it can become overwhelming, and then we have no self-care. So when we think about implementing self-care activities, I want them to be so simple that it might just be, I'm going to, as soon as I finish brushing my teeth, I'm going to take a few minutes to meditate. Or as soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm going to stretch for 30 seconds. It can be super simple, or right in the evening, different little things that take something that you already do, like brushing your teeth or taking your makeup off, or might be a habit that you do every evening, and then just add 30 seconds onto that of something else that can help you with your self-care. So again, practical self-care strategies. When we talk about the physical self-care, it can be so many different things, from strength training, yoga, Pilates, hydrating. So are we getting enough water? Are we taking in the right amount of nutrients? Are we eating balanced meals? So and again, it can become overwhelming when we look at all of these different things, like our sleep. And so choosing the areas that and you'll know, I don't have to, it's not something that anybody should tell you. You should know the physical activities or the physical aspects that you may struggle with. Some mental self-care practices could be meditation. Keep a thought diary. I love having a journal right by my bed to just jot down some of my thoughts. Spend time each week learning something new. I love that. And I love, we have a lot of opportunity with so many new systems, programs, and different ways to do it. And I think a lot of times people are scared or nervous and don't want to have change and don't want to have to learn. And that can be a really limiting thing when it comes to our mental self-care. So being open to learning something new is really awesome. Emotional self-care strategies could be your journal prompt each week or daily, writing your thoughts down. Practicing deep breathing, there's so much value in just being the ability to be able to slow down and take deep breaths. Progressive muscle relaxation, that's an activity that I love to do with guests and have them be aware of their body and being able to feel the body tense and then progressively relax. Also, engage in meaningful conversations with loved ones. That can be tricky. Conversations with some people can bring up anxiety. So we want to make sure that these conversations that you are having are making you feel loved and keeping you calm and not causing anxiety. So that can be a practice of self-care. So part 5, I mentioned a little bit of taking something that you already do and adding to it. So integrating self-care into your daily life. So figuring out, okay, if I'm not doing these things, what am I doing and how and where can it fit? Because what we've been doing for so many years, the brain likes a path of least resistance. And so it's going to just go right into habit. So if we can interrupt that habit or habit stack onto the things that we're already doing every day, like go through your schedule, like, okay, I do this every morning. I do this every morning. What can I add on to what I'm already doing that the brain won't even notice? So integrating self-care into your daily life can be just taking a simple thing like your exercise routine, meditating for a few minutes after you're already doing something else, or stretching. For me, if you are walking your dog every day, why not take literally, a few minutes at the very end, find a set of stairs or find a location that you can add on to that. Doesn't have to be long. Sometimes we don't do things because we're in such a hurry. Make it quick so that we get into the habit of stretching every single day. So these can be, again, fit into your daily life. You can look at your nutrition as well. How can you fit in nourishing activities like meal prep or shopping and say, okay, every day, where can I fit this in? And if it doesn't fit into this day and you're struggling with that, find a different day and a different time where I'm going to spend 10 minutes meal prepping, or I'm going to spend 10 minutes writing down what we're going to have for the week, maybe putting in an online order and getting into the habit of nourishing your body. Okay, last is our part 6 is seeking out support. This can be huge and very helpful. It can also, if we're not careful, it can be something that is actually a struggle for us. So when we're seeking out support, we want to seek out people who are supportive and that we trust. So people that are going to leave us feeling motivated and positive. So sharing your wins with others, it can be on social media, it can be with a group, it can be with a trainer, it can be with a therapist, it can be with a group of friends, family, or again, people you trust. So part 6 is really seeking out community support. It can be your Movara family, Movara alumni page, the people that you've met at Movara. I love to hear guests who have come and they've kept in touch with them. So reach out to them and seek help when needed. And also share your wins, share your success with them. That's one of the things that I've loved about our Movara Home program is it keeps that continued support of others who are in the same journey. So just something to leave you before we go into our journal prompt is self-care is a continuous process and an integral part of a healthy life. So keep exploring what works best. It's going to be different for everybody. And then adjust your practices as your life evolves. I know for me, my self-care looked way different 10 or 15 years ago. And I'm excited to see how that evolves and how my life changes with different situations. So again, be willing to adjust as your life evolves. Okay, we're going to just end with our journal prompt for the week of embracing and integrating self-care into your life. So the first thing we talked about is defining self-care. Write it down in your journal what self-care means to you and how do you understand it and what significance does it hold in your life. So that's a really big thing. How is self-care helping or hindering me currently? So the second thing is current self-care practices. You're going to list, and it's a really powerful activity to do. Sometimes we don't realize all of the self-care activities that we are doing or aren't doing. So make a list of all of the activities that you currently engage in and how do these practices make you feel and how do they impact your life day to day. Then step 3, you're going to journal about the gaps. So identify areas in your life where you feel self-care is lacking. Why do you think these gaps exist? And what steps can you take to address them? Then you're going to talk about the different barriers or obstacles. I've seen a lot of people have some physical barriers and physical obstacles to self-care. And so we have to overcome those barriers. Well, if I can't do this, then what can I do? And how can I get help to overcome those barriers? We have a gentleman this week who's in a wheelchair, and he definitely has some barriers to be able to practice self-care. So he's going to have to seek out some different help. And we've had to look at like, okay, well, how can we get him on a hike? And how can we get him in to be able to utilize the stretch classes and what classes can he do? What machines can he do? Because, he doesn't have the ability to utilize his legs, but there are a lot of upper body activities that he's realized this week that he can do, even with that really big barrier that a lot of us don't have. So some of us may have more barriers than others, but with those barriers, we can still overcome and figure out what self-care practices we can do. I loved in this, you're going to journal your ideal self-care day. So imagine a day dedicated entirely to self-care. You had nothing else to do. Describe what this day would look like in detail. What activities would you include, and how would these activities nourish your body, your mind, and your spirit? Again, it's a very helpful exercise to do because when we can identify what the ideal day is, we can start to make that our day. So I think it's a fun activity in your journal prompt this week. Also journal what lessons you have learned this week about self-care, the importance of self-care, and how it has changed your perspective on taking care of yourself. Then we're going to we talked about this already, but make a commitment. I've already committed to a couple things that I'm not doing regularly. One is calling my doctor and getting my physical exams because I've been slacking on that. And 2 is also just for me, the weeks can go by really, really fast, and strength training is really important to me. And I've been regular at times, and I've slacked, and I've had routines. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to just make a commitment I put up one, but I'm going to do 2 days of strength training a week. That's my commitment to my self-care. Now, I also want to just say I'm going to do it for this 1 week because to say I'm going to do it forever, I'm just setting myself to be frustrated. And I can take it week by week and I can change it. I can say, you know what, this week I'm going to stretch for, a little bit longer than I already do. So be specific about the actions you're going to take and how you're going to hold yourself accountable. Tell somebody what you're committing to and say, okay, this week for me, my self-care, and again, it's going to be so different and look different for everybody. It's going to be maybe I'm going to take a bath every day, or I'm going to send a text to a friend. I'm going to reach out to family that I am and cultivate better relationships. So then I want you to visualize how this looks, how consistently practicing self-care will affect your life in the long term. How will it impact your physical, mental, and emotional well-being? When we understand the why, it doesn't make it easy, but it makes it easier for sure. Because if we're not really like, okay, well, why am I? For me, if I understand the purpose behind something, I struggle a lot less with it. So the last 2 things, gratitude for self-care. We talked about how important the focus on gratitude is. And I've mentioned, if you're like me, it's easy to focus on all of the things that aren't happening, that I'm not doing, that I could be doing, and also that, maybe others aren't doing. And it can cause a really negative practice. And so for me, when I switch that and I express gratitude for the ability and the opportunity to practice self-care, and why are you thankful for these moments of self-nourishing, the ability to be able to choose my foods and to be able to have balanced meals and to nurture my body and to be able to rest, to relax, to go to sleep. I mean, there's so many things we take for granted of. And when we can express gratitude, it makes self-care that much easier. And then the last is a future self-reflection. So imagine yourself a year from now. So at the end of this 52 chapters, How is integrating self-care into your routine? What does it look like? And what difference do you see in yourself? And how has your life improved? These journal prompts can be a very beneficial, powerful activity or reflection, and it doesn't have to be long or big. It can be in your planner, in your it can be a couple sentences. It can be long if you have the time, but somewhere journaling can be a powerful activity. It's going to help facilitate deep and meaningful exploration of self-care practices. It encourages you to think critically about your current habits. Again, sometimes we might be shocked of what we're not doing or what we are actually doing, and then being able to recognize that. Recognize areas of improvement and envision a future where self-care is a priority and a regular practice of your life. This is the exciting part, is being able to see and say, no, I practice self-care regularly. And what that looks like is going to be, again, different. But this reflective process is aimed at reinforcing the value of self-care and motivating you to embrace it fully into your journey. So I love this month's topic of self-love. It's the foundation of our success and our results. And the more we can focus on it, the better things will be and the outcomes we'll have. Next week, we're going to talk all about managing stress, and use, social media to share some of your things. Use the hashtag your 2024 story on some of these different journal prompts or some of the commitments that you're making. It helps when you put yourself out there to make that commitment. It reinforces it to yourself. You can share on our alumni page. But I think it's really important to be able to reflect and share this journey with other people. So that can look differently in so many different levels. So thanks for joining us. I hope these have been helpful. It's a really important integral part of your success. And next week, I'm really excited to talk about managing stress.